Hello. So today I'm going to be answering another question that came in. And so I'm going to get right to it and read the question, and then we are going to dive in. All right. So this question pertains to private practice, and the person is asking, how do I stay compliant with legal, ethical, and financial responsibilities? Good question. I think we all should probably be making sure that we're staying on top of our legal, ethical, and financial responsibilities, and that we are in compliance. So let's jump right into how can we stay legally compliant. I think that there are probably a lot of categories that we could look at. I'm just going to touch on a few. When I think of legal compliance, I think of operating your practice, and I think about yourself as a professional. And so when we are talking about operating legally, then as far as where you're operating your practice, are you compliant legally with whatever requirements are set by your state, whatever requirements are set by your county? So if you happen to be in an area where they require certain licenses in order to operate that business, do you have all the licenses required for the county that you're operating in, for the state that you're operating in? As it relates to any covering of yourself liability wise, I don't know that that is a legal obligation. You wouldn't be necessarily breaking a law if you didn't have liability insurance. However, not having liability insurance just in case, something might happen, I think that's a bit negligent to overlook that, and that could definitely impact you financially. As far as how you advertise yourself as a clinician, you want to be, I think, in right standing, obviously, with your license. If you are supposed to be operating as a licensed clinician, is your license active? Have you made sure to keep that active, and are you doing everything that you're supposed to do in order to keep that in right standing? So there's a lot that can go on when we talk about legally as a professional, things that we should not do, and I think that also bleeds over into ethics. If you are being ethical, that means going according to whatever governing body you belong to. If you happen to be a licensed professional counselor, or a licensed clinical mental health professional, or licensed clinical social worker, or a licensed marriage and family therapist, or psychologist, psychiatrist, certain states, as it relates to professional counselors, certain states have different names. So I know everyone's state does not call it licensed professional counselor, but you know what I'm talking about when I say that. And so every person who is licensed has a governing body. Your state has a licensure department, and they have certain rules that they have outlined in order to kind of guide the way that you should be practicing as a professional in that state. And I think that as long as you are keeping up to date on these rules and regulations that have been set forth, then you will be not only ethically responsible, but it can also keep you out of some legal trouble as well. So you want to take a look at what your state licensing board has outlined. You want to take a look at what your professional association has outlined. And I think if you do that, you definitely will stay in compliance, because knowledge and awareness helps with compliance, okay? And so we don't want to be negligent in that area. We want to take some time every once in a while to just refresh our memories on the things that they've talked about. They've also, in some cases, added some things. I think recently, as in the last maybe couple years, the American Counseling Association even added to their code of ethics something to address social media. in a bigger way than they had before, because that's a big thing, and that can also cause us to fall out of compliance ethically as it relates to how we help our clients and how we deal with the surrounding public. Financially compliant, let's move over to that. When we're talking about financial compliance, we're talking about being responsible, but then also talking about some legal aspects as well. And so I think financial compliance talks to, are you setting aside money so that you are going to be able to pay your taxes? Obviously, if you are collecting monies and if you are running a business in your county, then you should be paying taxes on that business. And so that's something that you want to make sure that you are doing. And in order to have the proper information, you want to talk to a specialist in that area, whether you have an accountant that you're talking to, a financial planner, both, so that you are making sure that you're staying up to date on the tax codes as well as planning responsibly for the growth and the wellness of your business. Let me jump back real quick, because there's something that I missed out when I was talking about ethics. I was talking about those individuals who are licensed, but let me also just say, for those individuals who may not be licensed, some people are board certified. Some people are not necessarily licensed by the state, but they are still a part of a professional organization. This still applies to you, staying ethically compliant and staying therefore legally, in some cases, compliant. You have a governing board as well, and you should make sure that you also take a look at what that governing board for your profession states as far as the rules and the regulations, so that you are in compliance with what they are asking of the profession and how to conduct yourself as a professional. Okay, then going back to the finances, I would also say that there are certain things that you need to be mindful of if you're collecting money in your practice to stay compliant. If you happen to be taking insurance, that's another thing that you need to be aware of. There's some rules when it comes to that financially. So for example, there are some individuals who actually believe that you can take somebody's copay and never charge their insurance. That is actually not being compliant with the contract that you have come into with that insurance company. You cannot just take someone's copay and not charge them, or vice versa. Don't collect their copay, because I've also seen that online too. I'm not collecting the copay, I'm just actually going to charge the insurance because the person is financially strapped. And it's like, no, you can't do that either. So if you're going to accept their insurance, then you have to make sure that you accept it according to the contract that you entered into with the insurance company. Or don't accept the insurance, just put them on a sliding scale fee and tell them, in this situation, we're not going to be able to use your insurance because you can't afford the copay, or sorry, I can't just collect your copay and not charge you. You know, there's just so many different wonky things that can happen when we're talking about being financially compliant in insurance. So what I would also talk about that. Financial compliance, we can go in so many different directions with this. Financial compliance could also be collecting money, you know, for the service that you're providing. Some of us, money is like kryptonite to us. We know we need it, but we do not like having money conversations. And if somebody doesn't have it, doesn't bring it, forgets their wallet or whatever, we almost just hope that the problem goes away. So I think that's kind of a whole nother challenge with money mindset. But you do want to consider that when you're running a business, and if you want to be compliant with your own policies and procedures, then you are going to have to work through that. Okay? So thank you for the question. Hopefully I've given you something to think about, and I've answered your question thoroughly. Feel free to ask any additional questions underneath this video. You can write a question, you can write a comment, and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Until then, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.